time to be bigger, bigger, stronger, stronger.
Hi, I'm Phillippa Prempeh. Welcome to AWAKEN, the podcast. Kindly subscribe, like, and share, and leave a comment below so that every other person can be encouraged to follow this journey that we are embarking on. Today, I want to share with you something very important, something that I believe relates to all of us and our lives, and I have entitled it At The Crossroads. So, can you imagine that moment, or can you take your mind back to that moment of your life where you come to a point that you have to decide? You have to make major decisions in your life. That moment where you say, okay, this is it. This is where I have come. This is where I'm supposed to make that journey, that turn, either to go left or to go right in my life. And whatever decision you make is going to affect you and your life for the rest of whatever years that you are going to be on earth. Have you ever gone back to that moment and thought about that decision you made and examined your present, how that decision is affecting your present or your current state? So I'll tell you a short story. At age about 16 years, I lost my mother to chronic depression. The sort of depression she had to go through in her marriage. It was very terrible. She had a lot of challenges in her marriage. But unfortunately, my mother was the kind of person who couldn't really come out, open up to people and tell them what she was going through. So she endured so much, and then she died eventually out of depression. This is a very sad story. May her soul rest in perfect peace where she is. But after my mother died, I was taken to my stepmother's house by my father. And my stepmother was somebody who had already had her children, 4 children she had, who were all grown-ups. And so my father took me there and eventually left me there in their hands. I can't begin to tell you some of the hard and harsh treatments I had to go through in the hands of my stepmother and her children. I was so maltreated, I felt so alone, I felt so depressed, I felt so disadvantaged at a very early age. So at a point where as a young girl, I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know who to run to, I didn't know who to depend on. I didn't have a choice. I started depending on friends that I found in the area where I lived in Kumasi. And these friends led me into learning a whole lot of things. Even though I had a very good educational background, I had, by the grace of God, my parents gave me a very good religious Christian background. At the point at my age when I was so naive, when I was so innocent, when I was so frustrated and I didn't know where to turn, I eventually turned on friends. So I became a little girl who went to the nightclub, who was involved in all sort of relationships with boys, with men. I became a little girl who was a party girl, you understand. And this was a moment of my life where I was very innocent. I was actually influenced for a situation that I had no hand in, for a situation that I had no control over, for a problem that wasn't mine, that wasn't created for me. And some people will agree with me that they have equally gone through such situations. And there are a lot of other young children out there going through similar situations. To cut the long story short, after some years, when I didn't have an idea where my father was, because my father had left me in Kumasi with my stepmother and her children. And anytime I went to my stepmother to ask her, where's my father? She would tell me, your father has gone somewhere. She will come. You know, that rejection, that answer that breaks children. I was giving those answers. It was almost as if my father was being taken away from me or hidden from me so that I will not be able to get close to my father, because I was my father's favorite for sure. This was a very difficult time for me. Going through all these moments, there was a guy living with us even before my mother died. My father brought in his friend's son who was like a family. He became like a brother. So after my father had left, and I had nobody to depend on, I will not say he forced me into doing things, but I can say that at my age, I felt victim to sexual relationships that I was so naive about and I had little or no knowledge about. Eventually, I became pregnant. Pregnant at age 17. And things became worse for me in my stepmother's house, and things became worse for me in my stepmother's house more than it was before I got pregnant. The mockery, the rejection, the intimidation, it was so unbearable. What could I have done but to run to live with friends? Cutting a long story short again, I'm sure one day I will take you at length and tell you in detail most of the things that I had to go through as a child. So at age 18, I gave birth to my daughter. And 2 years after that, I was told that wherever my father went to, he had returned, or wherever he was, he had shown up, and he was in Accra. So I came all the way from Kumasi to Accra to meet my father. It was like a happiest moment for me because I had missed him. I needed him as a child. I needed so much to be with my father at that age. So I came back to my father in Accra. And after 2 years, when I was 20, my father died. He took ill and he also died. So I became an orphan at age 20. And once my father died, I was told that the things that my father left for us, my siblings and I, the properties that my father left for us, my stepmother and my father's lawyer had sold everything. I don't know how they did it, but they had sold eventually everything and we were left with nothing. And even before my father died, I had been thrown out of my father's house because my stepmother framed a story that I attacked her. And I bet if you see this woman that I'm talking about, a giant, very thick and tall, and you could imagine how I was, very small and very tiny, innocent, just because my stepmother wanted me out of my father's house. And she succeeded. So I was thrown out of my father's house at age 20 when my child was only 2 years. I eventually took my child to my sisters in Kumasi and came back to Accra because I wanted to be here. I didn't want to go there. And I bet you some of the things that I had to deal with on the streets of Dansoman in Accra, I can't begin to say that. It is a whole episode that I will be sharing with you as time goes on. But I got a different set of company. I got into drugs, I got into alcoholism, I got into all sort of relationships, I got myself into so many situations, terrible situations. But there is something that God has placed in each one of us, and it is that still small voice that we come into the world with. And this voice never leaves us for any moment. No matter the situation you are going through, that voice keeps speaking to you. No matter where you find yourself, it doesn't leave you. It keeps on reminding you who you are. It keeps on reminding you the purpose for which you are brought on earth, and it keeps on directing you somewhere, somehow. So I could consistently hear this voice telling me that, look, there is more to your life. There is more you have to achieve. This is not where you belong. This is not why you are here on earth. You have to move on. And that, I think, was the crossroads of my life. Because I remember that very evening vividly every time I sit down to think about it. I was at Gold House. There was this big pub in Dansoman. It was like a community pub. So every evening we'll all be sitting there with our friends, drinking, chatting, smoking, doing all sort of things. And I remember that evening when I sat down in the company of my friends. I had my packet of cigarette, Rothman's king size. I had my bottle of beer. I was sitting among my friends, and the natural me would be so happy and so exciting and chatting with my friends and sharing story and teasing. But that very day, I couldn't even lift up my head. I was just bowed, I had my cigarette smoking, and my thoughts were running wild. Something inside of me kept telling me that that place was not where I belonged. That life was not what I was purposed to become. So it was up to me to decide which way to go. And you can just imagine, I didn't even have a permanent place to lay my head. I didn't have any help from anywhere. I didn't know which way to go. I was just as confused as I bet you are right now. But I made a decision that night. I decided to take the other road because there was something inside of me that wanted more. And I knew that whatever decision I took at that moment was going to affect me for the rest of my life. So I made a choice to turn around from every situation and every circumstance that I found myself in at that moment, even though I didn't have the help, I didn't have the resources, I didn't know which way to go, but I made a decision. And that decision helped me into turning around from a life that could have eventually resulted in death, maybe, in destruction, self-destruction, to a life that is fulfilling, a life that I'm able to share with you, to encourage you today. Maybe you have come to that point, that crossroad of your life, and you also need to make a decision. Maybe your crossroad is losing a loved one, and you can't get hold of yourself back again to move on. Maybe your crossroad is a broken marriage or a broken relationship. Maybe your crossroad is that job that you have lost. That investment, that thing that you've invested your whole knowledge, your whole business ideas, your whole finances into, that you have lost. Maybe your crossroad is that a friendship that you have so much developed has broken. Maybe your crossroad is that you have failed so much that you have lost absolute confidence in yourself. You don't know which way to go again. This is your crossroad. And I'm here to tell you today that the light at this place is brighter than the darkness you are seeing. So I'm going to give you a few tips about 4 things that you can do when you get to the crossroads of your life. Number 1, know that the place you are right now, the situation you are in right now, is a great opportunity for you to rewrite your life story. Now it's almost as if, it's almost like you're at a T-junction. You don't know which way to go. You are coming from God knows where. You ask to choose whether to go to the left or to go to the right. You know what is happening in your life, and you know where the positive aspect is, and you know where the negative aspect is. So it is up to you to make a choice. But be reminded that at this point, at this crossroad of your life, you have every opportunity to rewrite the story, to change the story if you are not happy with what is going on right now. You can tell the story your own way. You can start living the life that will make you fulfilled and the life that will keep you happy for the rest of your life. Point number 2, you should know that every situation has its own purpose and its own positivity attached into it. Most often we look at the stress that we are going through, the darkness that is around us, the depression we are going through, the problems we are enduring, the situation that we are going through, and we forget to look at the light. Because mind you, no light can shine in light. Light only shines in darkness. So you have to understand and you have to know that at the crossroad, that is where the light is. That is where the positivity is. And it is up to you to see that light and follow that light. And that light is right there inside of you. It keeps ticking. It keeps blinking. It keeps showing up. It is up to you to highlight it. It is up to you to increase its shine. Point number 3, you should know that the crossroads of your life is a priceless opportunity for growth. Yes, so this is where all the lessons unfold. Now, this is a point where you can just relax, take it easy with yourself, assess and analyze everything that you have gone through, and build a new life, correct your mistakes, and correct everything that you can correct at this point of your life. The crossroad is a great opportunity for self-growth. Now, my final point to you. When you get to the crossroads, this is a determinant of your attitude. Attitude counts a lot. Whether we will succeed or will fail, it depends on attitude. Your reaction, your attitude towards every situation will count a greater number. Your attitude or your reaction in every situation will determine how great you come out or how low you fall. Don't only look at the negative aspect of it. Even though it might seem difficult, which I understand because I have been there. Even though it might seem so hard, so unbearable, which I understand because I have been there. There is always a chance to make a decision to put out the right attitude, to accept things that you cannot control, to not overlook and over-empower your weaknesses. But you can decide to handle every situation in a very calm and modest way, which will help you so much to make the right decisions. This is where I bring you to the end of this episode. I hope it has helped you. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of AWAKEN. Subscribe, like, and share this podcast to receive our latest episodes. Spread the word and don't forget to click on that little bell to receive notifications for new episodes of AWAKEN. Remember, all things are possible when we believe. AWAKEN to your best life.